My sister Victoria actually laughed out loud when the lawyers said my name during my father's will reading. A real laugh, head thrown back, hand on her chest, like the idea of me inheriting anything was the funniest joke she'd heard all year. My other siblings smirked. My brother Marcus whispered something to Lauren that made her chuckle. But then the lawyer read one line, just one single line my father had written, and the laughter died so fast you could hear the silence echo off the walls of that conference room. My name is Ben Morrison. I'm 32 years old. And I'm the family disappointment. While my siblings climbed the corporate ladder at Morrison Industries, our father's manufacturing empire worth $200 million. Became a high school English teacher in Oakland, making $52,000 a year. To my family, I was the one who threw away every advantage I'd been given. The one who chose idealism over wealth. The one who wasn't smart enough to understand what really mattered. My father, Robert Morrison, died 3 weeks ago at 7. Pancreatic cancer. 6 brutal months from diagnosis to death. And today, we were gathered at his attorney's office in downtown San Francisco to learn how he de-divided his empire. The contempt started the day. I told my family I wasn't joining the company. I was 22, fresh out of college with an English degree. My father had assumed I'd get my MBA. Join Morrison Industries like my siblings. I'm going to teach, I told him at dinner. Victoria dropped her fork. Teach? Like at a university. High school, English and creative writing. The silence was deafening. That's temporary, right? My father said. Before business school? No, Dad. It's what I want to do. Marcus laughed. You're going to make what? 40 grand a year. Teaching kids who don't want to learn? Someone has to. Someone, Lauren said, but not someone with your advantages. Not someone from this family. My father tried a different approach. Ben, I respect the impulse. But teaching is for people without options. You have options. You have a legacy to carry forward. Maybe I want to create my own legacy. Victoria leaned forward. You want to know what your legacy will be? Being the Morrison who wasted every opportunity he was given. The one who made our family name synonymous with failure. But I went anyway. Got my teaching credential. Landed a job at Oakland Tech High School, worked with kids from neighborhoods my family wouldn't drive through, taught students who'd never met someone who believed they could write, could think, could be more than their circumstances, and my family treated me like I'd contracted a disease. Thanksgiving dinners became interrogations. Still teaching, Victoria would ask, tone dripping with pity. Still can't afford a decent car. Marcus would add, Ben lives in Oakland. Lauren would tell guests, saying Oakland like it was a prison sentence. My father said less and less to me each year. Disappointment etched deeper into his face every time we spoke. When he was diagnosed 6 months ago, my siblings sprang into action, but not to care for him, to position themselves for the inheritance. Victoria moved into the executive chairman role. Marcus restructured the financials. Lauren rebranded the company. They were already carving up the empire before Dad was even gone. I did something different. I visited every single night after teaching. I drove from Oakland to Dad's house in Pacific Heights. Sat with him, read to him when he was too tired to talk. Held his hand when the pain got bad. Where are your siblings? He asked one night. Working, running your company. Of course. He smiled weakly. At least, someone's here. My siblings visited maybe once a week. 30-minute check-ins between meetings. They'd ask about the will, about his plans for the company, about succession. Never about how he was feeling. Never about whether he was scared. In his final 2 months, Dad could barely walk. I took leave from teaching, moved into his guest room, became his full-time caretaker managing medications, coordinating with hospice, feeding him when he couldn't hold a fork. Victoria called once during those 2 months. We need Dad to sign some paperwork about company shares. He can barely hold a pen. Victoria, it's time sensitive. He's dying. Which is exactly why it's time sensitive. Dad died on a Tuesday morning. I was holding his hand. His last words were, "You're a good son, Ben." Better than I deserved. My siblings arrived an hour later, dressed for work, discussing funeral logistics and PR statements. The funeral was 3 days ago. 200 people. Victoria gave a moving eulogy about Dad's business legacy. Marcus talked about his innovation. Lauren shared carefully curated memories. No one mentioned that I was the one who'd been there at the end, the one who'd watched him fade. The one who'd made sure he didn't die alone. Today we gathered at his attorney's office, a gleaming tower in the financial district. My siblings wore designer suits. I wore the same suit I'd worn to the funeral, the only one I owned. We sat around a mahogany conference table. Dad's lawyer, Richard Chun, was 70. Traditional, unreadable. "Thank you all for coming," he began. Robert left very specific instructions about how his estate should be handled. Victoria leaned forward, eager. Marcus had a legal pad ready. Lauren smiled confidently. I sat at the end of the table, assuming I'd get some token amount. Maybe 50,000. Maybe nothing. "The estate is substantial," Richard continued. "Morrison Industries is valued at $200 million. There are additional properties, investments, and liquid assets totaling approximately $230 million. My siblings were practically salivating. Robert wanted me to read his statement first, before we get to the specific bequests. Richard pulled out a letter, cleared his throat. "To my children, I built Morrison Industries from nothing. I sacrificed. I worked. I made something that mattered. I hoped you'd understand what that meant, not just the money, but the commitment, the dedication, the showing up, even when it's hard." He paused. "But only one of you truly understood." Victoria's smile faltered. Richard continued reading. "Victoria, Marcos, Lauren, you're brilliant business people. You've run my company well. But in my final months, when I needed family, not executives, you were too busy. Too important, too focused on the empire to notice the emperor was dying alone. My siblings shifted uncomfortably. Ben sewed up every single night. He put his life on hold. He read to me, talked to me, made sure I wasn't afraid. He didn't ask about the will. He didn't position himself for inheritance. He just loved me, and that's worth more than all the business acumen in the world." The room was silent now. No more confident smirks. "Therefore," Richard said, "I leave my estate as follows: 5 escalada y so. Massima 4.36.30 to Victoria Morrison. I leave $1 million, and my gratitude for your years of service to Morrison Industries." Victoria's face went white. $1 million? Out of 230? "To Marcus Morrison, I leave $1 million, and my thanks for your financial stewardship." Marcus stood up. "This is insane. We ran his company for decades. To Lauren Morrison, I leave $1 million, and my appreciation for your marketing expertise." "This is a mistake," Lauren said. "Dad was on morphine at the end. He wasn't thinking clearly, I assure you," Richard said coldly. Robert was completely lucid when he finalized this will. 3 separate doctors evaluated him. He knew exactly what he was doing. Then, what happens to the rest? Victoria demandeth. The company, the properties, the $227 million. Richard looked at me. "To Benjamin Morrison, I leave the following: Morrison Industries in its entirety, including all shares, properties, and business assets, the Pacific Heights residence, the vacation homes in Napa and Tahoe, all investment portfolios, and all liquid assets. The total bequest is approximately $227 million. The room exploded. "That's impossible," Victoria shouted. "He doesn't know anything about running a company," Marcus added. "This will be contested," Lauren said. "Dad was clearly manipulated." "There's more," Richard interrupted. "Robert anticipated you'd react this way, so he left this." He pulled out another document and began reading. "To my 3 eldest children, I know you'll say Ben doesn't deserve this, that he doesn't understand business, that he'll destroy what I built. But here's what you don't understand. He's the only one who understood what actually mattered." Richard's voice was steady, but the words cut deep. "You 3 saw Morrison Industries as a prize to be won. Ben saw it as people to be cared for. You saw money. He saw meaning. And that's exactly who I want running my company, someone who understands that businesses are built by people, not just for profit." Victoria was shaking with rage. "He's a teacher. He makes $50,000 a year. What does he know about more than you think?" Richard interrupted. He pulled out more papers. "Robert had me conduct a thorough review of company operations over the past year, specifically employee satisfaction, turnover rates, and cost-cutting measures implemented by senior management. He laid out reports. Under Victoria's leadership, employee turnover increased 47%. Marcus implemented cost-cutting that eliminated health benefits for lower-level employees. Lauren's rebrand included massive layoffs in manufacturing people who'd worked for Morrison for decades. My siblings went silent. Your father built that company on loyalty and care for his workers. You transformed it into a corporate machine that chewed people up. Ben might not know business, but he knows people, and your father believed that's what Morrison Industries needs now: humanity, not just efficiency. Richard wasn't done. There's one more thing. Ben, your father left you this letter, to be read in front of everyone. He handed me an envelope. My hands shook as I opened it. Read it aloud. Please, Richard said. I cleared my throat and began. Ben, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and your siblings are probably furious. Let them be. They'll contest the will. They'll claim you manipulated me. They'll say I was senile or drugged. But I was neither. I was finally clear-headed for the first time in years. I continued, my voice breaking. You gave up 6 months of your life to sit with a dying old man. You didn't ask for anything. You didn't position yourself for inheritance. You just loved me. And in doing so, you showed me what I'd lost in building my empire: the ability to value people over profit. Morrison Industries needs someone who remembers that the workers are people, not assets. Someone who'll sacrifice profit for principle. Someone who'll show up not because it's strategic, but because it's right. That's you, Ben. It's always been you. Tears streamed down my face. I'm sorry. I made you feel like a disappointment. You weren't. You were the only one who got it right. Now, take this company and show your siblings what true success looks like, not in quarterly earnings, but in lives changed, in dignity preserved, in showing up when it's hard. I finished reading. The room was silent, except for my crying. Victoria was the first to speak. Her voice hollow. This isn't fair. Fair. Richard said, you three made millions in salaries while working for Morrison Industries. You have stock options, bonuses, savings. Ben has a teacher's salary and student loans. Your father was trying to balance the scales. He's destroying our inheritance, Marcus shouted. No, Richard corrected. He's giving it to the one child who actually sacrificed for him, the one who loved him without conditions, the one who showed up. My siblings left threatening to sue. They hired lawyers, but Richard had prepared everything perfectly: psychiatric evaluations, documented timelines, video recordings of Dad explaining his reasoning. The will stood. I inherited $227 million and a company I had no idea how to run. But I had something else: a mandate from my father to try to bring humanity back to Morrison Industries. I kept my job teaching for the rest of the school year, but I hired consultants, read everything I could, learned the business at night, and I made changes. Restored health benefits Marcus had cut. Rehired workers Lauren had laid off. Implemented profit-sharing programs Victoria had rejected. Profit decreased that first year. My siblings sent articles about my failures. Morrison Air runs company into ground. But employee satisfaction soared. Turnover plummeted. Workers stayed late, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. My father had gambled that someone who knew how to care for one dying man could learn to care for 2,000 employees. He was right. My name is Ben Morrison. I'm 32 years old. At my father's will reading. My family laughed when my name was mentioned, certain I'd get nothing, that I was the family failure. Then the lawyer read one line. To Benjamin Morrison, I leave everything. And the laughter died. I didn't inherit $200 million because I was the smartest or most successful. I inherited it because I showed up, because I sat with a dying man when everyone else was too busy managing his empire to notice he was disappearing. My siblings built careers. I built a relationship. And in the end, that's what mattered most.